Savannah is the oldest city in the state of Georgia and the county seat of Chatham County. Established in 1733 on the Savannah River, the city of Savannah became the British colonial capital of the province of Georgia and later the first state capital. A strategic port city in the American Revolution and during the American Civil War, Savannah is today an important Atlantic seaport. Each year, Savannah attracts millions of visitors to its cobblestone streets, parks, and historic buildings. These include the birthplace of Juliette Gordon Low, who was the founder of the Girl Scouts, the Georgia Historical Society, which is the oldest continually operating historical society in the South, the Telfair Academy of Arts and Sciences, the First African Baptist Church, and the Central of Georgia Railway Roundhouse Complex, which is the oldest standing antebellum rail facility in the United States and now a museum and visitor center. Savannah's downtown area, which includes the Savannah Historic District, its 22 park-like squares, and the Savannah Victorian Historic District, is one of the largest national historic landmark districts in the United States. Downtown Savannah largely retains the founder James Oglethorpe's original town plan, a design known as the Oglethorpe Plan. Savannah is also widely known as the most haunted city in America. If you walk into any of the numerous historic buildings or cemeteries in Savannah, and you may catch a glimpse of a ghostly presence surrounding you. Let's explore some of the more well-known haunted places in Savannah. The Marshall House Hotel on Broughton Street is one of the oldest hotels in Savannah, and with that distinction comes a colorful past. The Marshall House has retained some of the original architectural features, such as the beautiful brick walls and beautiful staircase. Mary Marshall built the hotel in 1851 on land that she had inherited from her father, Gabriel Lever, who was a French cabinetmaker. The Marshall House is widely considered by architectural historians to be the finest structure Mary Marshall ever built. During the Civil War, the Marshall House was occupied by the Union Army and was used as a hospital until the end of the war. It was again used as a hospital during the yellow fever epidemics of the 19th century, and many believe ghosts still roam the old structure. When the hotel was restored in the late 1990s, workers were replacing some damaged floorboards downstairs when they found human remains. The area became a crime scene, but soon it was learned that the downstairs area had once been the hospital's surgery room. This led historians to believe that the bones which were discovered came from the amputated limbs of Civil War soldiers. The Marshall House is well aware of its reputation for paranormal activity. Eerie ghostly occurrences include faucets that turn on and off, lights that inexplicably flicker, electronic items powering themselves on, toilets suddenly overflowing for no apparent reason, and disembodied voices that echo throughout the halls. On the fourth-floor hallway, loud noises are known to take place during the early morning hours, like the thundering of a heavy object crashing to the ground. Also, doorknobs to the rooms tend to wiggle as if someone is attempting to enter the room. Portrait of Mary Marshall hangs behind the front desk in the hotel's lobby. One day a young girl who was staying at the hotel with her father pointed to the picture of Mary Marshall and told her father that she had seen the lady in the hallway. While we do not know exactly what the father said, you can imagine his surprise when his young daughter told him she had seen the ghost of a woman who has been dead for many years. Guests have also reported hearing the distinct sound of an old-fashioned typewriter coming from the former room of author Joel Chandler Harris, who is best known for his collection of Uncle Remus stories. Other ghosts that are said to haunt the hotel include a debonair gentleman reading a book by a window, a lady in white flowing through the hallways, and another ghostly woman who haunts the ladies' restroom that has been known to lock occupants in the restroom stall. There are countless tales of the apparitions of small children and the sounds of crying babies that have been regularly reported by guests at the famous hotel. The spirits of these children are known to linger around the Marshall House, as the laughter and playful voices of the children can be heard within the building at any given moment. Sometimes, these ghostly children can be seen skipping, running, and playing games through the hallway, their apparitions as a physical form. During the night, sounds of marbles can be heard rolling and bouncing in the hallways, but if you were to take a peek out in the hall, most likely you would not see anything. After the hotel renovations unearthed the bones of Civil War soldiers, the remains were cleared, but the paranormal energy continues to persist. hotel guests have reported numerous accounts of the ghosts of amputee soldiers who walk aimlessly throughout the hotel. One of these apparitions has been seen in the hotel's lobby with his missing arm in hand, pleading with the guests to help him find a surgeon. At the site of the old operating room, guests have claimed to have seen a doctor treating soldiers who have been recently brought in from the battlefield. Some have also said that they have felt a presence holding onto their wrist, as a nurse would do to feel for someone's pulse. The Hamilton-Turner Inn, located on Lafayette Square in the historic district of downtown Savannah, was built by architect J.D. Hall for Samuel Hamilton, who was a mayor of Savannah and a Grand Master of the Knights Templar. He and his wife Sarah were known to entertain extravagantly, and wanted a house that would suit their every need. They spared no expense during the creative process. The 17-room home was constructed in 1873 and nicknamed the Grand Victorian Lady. The inn was the very first house in the city of Savannah to install electricity, but this really is not all that surprising considering Mr. Hamilton was the president of Brush Electric Light and Power Company. Legend has it that the people of Savannah would gather just outside of the home in the evening to watch the lights turn on. Some kept their distance, fearful that the home might explode. Not only did the Hamilton mansion not explode, but it was also one of the only homes in town to survive the Savannah fire of 1898, because its tin roof was resistant to the hot embers that ignited and destroyed much of the city. The home remained with the Hamilton family until 1915, when it was eventually sold to Dr. Francis Turner. The Turner family lived in the house, with Dr. Turner using the basement as his office. The Turners continued to live there until 1926, when the family moved out and opened the mansion up as a boarding house. 2 years later, the mansion became the home of the Marine Hospital nurses. But, in 1940, the Turner family moved back into the house and Dr. Turner resumed his medical practice in the basement. The Turners were also known for hosting extravagant parties. During these parties, the children were banished upstairs, where they would play with the balls on the billiard table. One night the children accidentally rolled billiard balls down the stairs so they could retrieve them and catch a glimpse of what the adults were doing. However, one of the little girls tripped on the top step and fell down the stairs to her death. It is said that her ghost still rolls billiard balls throughout the inn once the sky has darkened, and night has descended over the city. The mansion was again sold in 1965 to the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. It was rumored that the plan was to tear down the mansion to build a playground for the nearby school, while others claimed that the cathedral wanted the land for a parking deck. However, in the end, it did not matter as the Savannah Historic Foundation stepped in and saved the mansion from possible destruction. Over the next several years the mansion had several owners, and in 1997, Charlie and Sue Strickland bought the house from Nancy Hillis and the home was converted into the Hamilton-Turner Inn. Rob and Jane Sales took over the restoration work in 2003, but it was later sold to the current owners, Gay and Jim Dunlop, who work in cooperation with the historic Savannah Foundation. Together, they continue to maintain the Hamilton-Turner Inn's legacy and historical importance. If the Hamilton-Turner Mansion looks familiar, it might just be because you have seen it before. The Hamilton-Turner home was rumored to be the early inspiration behind Walt Disney's Haunted Mansion, which was based off the first designs of Harper Goff in the 1950s. The house's French Gothic architecture and natural creepiness makes the Haunted Mansion rumor unsurprising. A report from CNN claimed that Walt Disney himself sat on the bench in front of the Hamilton-Turner Mansion and sketched it. Another source claims that Walt Disney briefly considered nearby Hutchinson Island as a location for Disney World, but it apparently was not quite big enough for his dreams. Tim Nealon, CEO and founder of Ghost City Tours, recalls his own ghostly encounter at the Hamilton-Turner Inn. Tim stated, "I spent a night at the Hamilton-Turner Inn. I was not there looking for ghosts, I simply wanted to stay there. I heard the accommodations were amazing and I wanted to treat myself for the night. At about 2 in the morning, I was awoken by the sounds of footsteps walking past my bed. They were very clear and unmistakable. It sounded like someone was walking right towards me laying in bed. It can be very unnerving to experience this. The room was very dark and I could not tell if it was an actual person or something else. I laid in bed for a few seconds and the footsteps stopped. I asked, 'Is there anyone here?' The paranormal investigator in me started to kick in, as I realized nobody was in the room with me. I did not get a response, and nothing else happened for the rest of the evening. The 1790 Inn and Restaurant is a historic inn, restaurant, and tavern in Savannah. The inn is located on East President Street just west of Columbia Square and is Savannah's oldest inn, occupying a building dating to 1790 and thus predating the foundation of the square. The property occupies what was originally 3 separate residences. The western part of the building was built around 1822. The smaller eastern section was built in 1888. The ground level is believed to be part of an earlier structure that was burned in the Savannah Fire of 1820. The most well-known ghost at the 1790 Inn is the ghost of Anne. Her ghost has been seen on the top floor of the inn in room 204. The ghost of Anne seems to enjoy disturbing the belongings of guests. Those who stay in room 204 regularly report having their belongings moved, rearranged, or even come up missing. People have also said they feel the presence of the spirit while staying in the room. Sheets have been tugged by an unseen force. The sobs of a woman crying have emanated from the dark corners of room 204 after the lights go out. It is no wonder that people who come to Savannah hoping for an encounter with a ghost ask to stay in room 204. Those hoping to have an encounter with the ghost are not often let down. Another ghost which has been reported at the 1790 Inn over the years seems to enjoy taking up residence in the kitchen. This ghost is much more sinister in nature than the ghost which is sometimes seen upstairs. Apparently, the ghost which haunts the kitchen is not very fond of women being in the kitchen. Pots have been thrown, people have been pushed or touched, and pranks have been pulled on women who are working in or around the kitchen. Staff members who have been working late at night in the area of the bar or kitchen have had unnerving things happen to them. While all alone, they will hear the sounds of someone moving in the kitchen, pots banging together, and the sound of metal jingling. The Moon River Brewing Company stands as an iconic establishment known not only for its craft beers but also for its reputation as one of the most haunted locations in Savannah. The Moon River Brewing Company holds a storied history that dates back to the early 19th century. The building itself was constructed in 1821 and served as Savannah's first hotel, known as the City Hotel. The hotel quickly became a prominent social hub, attracting locals and travelers alike with its elegant architecture and prime location in the heart of Savannah. In 1851, the City Hotel underwent a transformation and became the Central Hotel, continuing to thrive as a popular gathering place for Savannah's elite. However, in 1864, during the Civil War, the hotel faced its first tragedy when a massive fire broke out in Savannah, destroying much of the city, including parts of the Central Hotel. After the devastating fire, the hotel was rebuilt and resumed its operations. However, it was not until the late 19th century that the building took on a new role that would significantly impact its future. It was during this time that Savannah faced a severe yellow fever epidemic, and the city's hospitals were overwhelmed with patients. To accommodate the increasing number of infected individuals, the Central Hotel was temporarily converted into a makeshift hospital. The hospital saw a significant number of deaths during this period, with patients succumbing to the deadly disease. The turbulent and tragic history of the building as a hospital during the epidemic contributed to the lore and haunted reputation of Moon River Brewing Company today. Throughout the 20th century, the building served various purposes, including a storage facility and a restaurant. It was not until 1999 that Moon River Brewing Company was established and the building found a new purpose as a brewery and pub. Visitors to the Moon River Brewing Company have reported a range of disturbing encounters and unexplained occurrences. Some of the ghostly tales associated with this haunted establishment include apparitions. Witnesses have claimed to see apparitions, including shadowy figures and translucent forms, moving through the brewery. These ethereal entities are believed to be the spirits of past occupants, lingering within the building's walls. Unexplained sounds, such as footsteps, whispers, and disembodied voices, have been heard echoing throughout the brewery. These ghostly noises add to the haunting ambience and leave visitors with an undeniable sense of the supernatural. Objects have been known to move on their own or be inexplicably thrown, glasses shattering, and furniture rearranging itself have been reported, suggesting the presence of mischievous or restless spirits. Sudden drops in temperature, particularly in certain areas of the building, have been experienced by visitors. These chilling cold spots are often associated with paranormal activity and leave an eerie impression. Within the walls of Moon River Brewing Company, the echoes of past tragedies and paranormal encounters still reverberate. One such event took place in 1909, when a violent altercation resulted in the death of a man named James Stark. His spirit is said to linger, casting an eerie presence throughout the brewery. In 1921, another haunting incident unfolded when a young girl fell to her death from the third-floor balcony. Visitors have reported seeing her apparition, forever trapped in a spectral loop of her final moments. These occurrences serve as a chilling reminder of the restless spirits that still reside within the walls of the Moon River Brewing Company, forever bound to its tragic history. The pinnacle of darkness lies on the fourth floor, a former makeshift hospital during the dreaded yellow fever era. Here, a relentless battle against the merciless disease claimed numerous lives, leaving spirits forever entwined with their place of suffering. As you ascend, an unmistakable aura of despair engulfs all, thick with the energies of suffering and anguish. Many believe these apparitions are the souls of those defeated by the fever's ruthless grasp, still trapped in eternal torment. The Moon River Brewing Company stands as a nexus where the past and the paranormal intertwine. Amidst the clinking of glasses and the laughter of patrons, the spirits of Savannah's history seem to linger, leaving an indelible mark on this historic brewery. Whether you visit for the craft beer or to experience the eerie ambience, the Moon River Brewing Company offers an unforgettable journey into the haunted depths of Savannah's past. Built on Columbia Square in Savannah, Georgia, the Kehoe House was completed in 1892. It was built for William Kehoe and his family. They lived in the house for many years with their children. It is known that some of the children passed away inside of the house. Guests who stay at the Kehoe House have reported all sorts of haunted events happening to them while staying at the Kehoe House. With children having passed away in the home, it is no coincidence that the ghosts of children are some of the most reported ghostly occurrences in the house. One of the stories that persists is the story of two of the Kehoe children getting stuck in the chimney. According to legend, they were never able to escape and died in that chimney. The story goes that one day, Mrs. Kehoe came home to find two of her children missing. In a panic, she looked everywhere, but they were nowhere to be found. Sometime later, a bad smell began to engulf the house. This led the Kehoe family to look in the chimney, where they found the bodies of these two children. Fortunately, these events never actually occurred. But the fact still remains that many people who have stayed at the Kehoe House have experienced paranormal activities that involve the ghosts of children. One possible explanation can be found when you consider residential hauntings. Residual hauntings are when events or sounds from the past seemingly replay themselves in a haunted location. We know that many children have lived in the Kehoe House, well before it was known as a haunted bed and breakfast. It is possible that what the guests are experiencing is actually the residual imprints that those children left on the house. Another ghostly experience that occurs at the Kehoe House is the smell of perfumes from an age past have also been noticed wafting their way through the hallways or bedrooms. However, at least one of the ghosts seems to be of the intelligent variety. In other words, a ghost that appears to recognize the living and can interact with them. And this has been known to happen at the Kehoe House. This might explain why the guests of the Kehoe House also often report the feeling of someone touching them while they sleep. Numerous people who have stayed at the Kehoe House have reported the ghostly phenomena. Located deep in the historical district and a short walk from Oglethorpe Square on East St. Julian Street, the Hampton-Libridge House has seen much suffering and death. From the outside, it is a distinctive and elegant house. It was built in 1796 to house its namesake, Hampton-Libridge, who was originally from Rhode Island. The design matched his New England origins, even though it was built in Georgia. His widow sold the house after Hampton-Libridge died, and the new owner converted it into a boarding house. In its new function, it saw at least one tragedy. A troubled sailor ashore for a short break committed suicide by hanging himself in one of the guest rooms. This suicide marred the reputation of the boarding house. The boarding house eventually closed for business, and for many years, no one lived in the house. In 1963, Jim Williams, the inspiration for the main character in John Berendt's book Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, bought the house. The events that occurred after his purchase of the property mirror his own life story. The house has become a legendary property in the city, its story changing with each recitation and with the events that keep happening at the house. What has remained consistent, though, is the intense level of haunting that has happened at the house. An esteemed antique dealer and architectural restorationist, Williams took much pleasure in restoring the Libridge House to its former grandeur. A common telling of the story recounts that in the process of moving the whole house, on blocks and wheels, just a few blocks down the road, part of the roof collapsed, crushing one of Williams's anonymous laborers who died from his injuries. The troubles didn't end with the property's successful transplantation. Perhaps moving the whole house just aroused more of the dormant pain within, as Mr. Williams' construction crew experienced more misfortune almost immediately. They felt chilling, tingling sensations on the backs of their necks. At times, the hauntings resembled the sound of furniture being moved around, which could be heard from distant rooms. They heard laughter, voices, and footsteps seemingly coming from nowhere. Tools and construction equipment were also subject to uncanny events, almost explicable but suspicious, nonetheless. Building materials were inexplicably moved or just disappeared completely. The builders working on the restoration also spotted apparitions and heard voices. One specter seen often was described as a tall man dressed in black. The crew reported seeing the apparition watching them from a third-floor window. They said he wore a black suit and a light-colored tie and stood by the window, transfixed by their actions. The people who lived next door complained of noises like a party was happening, hearing singing and dancing despite the house being empty at the time. Some neighbors even saw people dancing on the third floor, while everyone they asked reassured them the place was vacant. The house had no reported electrical issues, yet lights were seen to flicker on and off, seemingly at random. A woman who lived locally confessed privately to Williams that she had recently been feeling a great fear of a male presence, not a man, but a presence, that she sensed the house. Williams was not a big believer in the supernatural and rejected the idea that the house was possessed. He did, however, reveal a telling detail that could be the key to the whole mystery. The renovations had unearthed a mysterious crypt beneath the house's new location. During the restoration of the house at its new location, the crew had to dig up the house's foundation to seat the upper stories in their new home. In their excavation, they unearthed an ancient crypt below the level of the basement foundations, which most likely dates from a pre-colonial period. To some, this indicated that it was of Native American origin. The walls of the crypt were built with rough lime and crushed oyster shells. Williams was notified of their findings but was apparently not at the property at the time. It is not clear what happened to the crypt. There was no mention of moving it, or reinterment, in accounts from the Williams period. After its discovery, it seems the crypt was buried underneath the house. Even after hearing about so many incidents of haunted activity in the newly renovated property, Williams moved into the Hampton-Libridge House. The spirits, in their own way, immediately welcomed Williams. In the middle of the night, the grating sound of footsteps woke him several times. They were not soft footsteps, he described them as sounding like glass being crushed. Williams also witnessed the appearance of a shadowy figure who approached him and then suddenly disappeared. Williams once tried to pursue one of the spirits. He wrote about chasing it down a hallway until a door abruptly slammed in his face. He attempted to open the door but it was locked. With the resident spirits affecting his sleep and making life difficult, Williams decided to try and do something about the occupations. He went to see an Episcopal bishop from a nearby church, Reverend Albert Rhett Stewart. In December of 1963, the bishop conducted a lengthy exorcism of the restored Hampton-Libridge House. He conducted a ceremonial blessing of the home. He demanded that the evil spirits leave and rest in peace. His efforts were not in vain. The exorcism succeeded, for less than a week. A few days later, the disturbances resumed. Not to be dissuaded, Williams next invited a series of paranormal investigators, psychics, and other organizations to have a look at the property and see if they could do anything about the spooky residence. They all agreed that paranormal activity had occurred within the house, but no one offered any ideas on how to rid the house of its unwanted guests. Other people have since moved into the Hampton-Libridge House after Jim Williams sold it. It still has a haunted reputation. Regardless, the Hampton-Libridge House is still a private residence. As such, it is not open to the public for visits or tours inside. One of the most overlooked areas in Savannah may be Factors Walk, located between Bay Street and River Street. Factors Walk gets a lot of foot traffic, but very few people know the history of this alleyway. The ghosts that call Factors Walk home have some of the most heartbreaking stories in Savannah. Families were torn apart, murders, accidental deaths. Factors Walk has seen it all. The slaves that were brought into Savannah from market through the sea passed through Factors Walk. Today, Factors Walk is lined with art shops, restaurants, and more. By the 19th century, Savannah was the leading exporter of cotton in the entire world. That is how Factors Walk got its name. The people who set the prices for cotton and many other exports were called factors. In some of the buildings, you walk past men made decisions which affected economies around the globe. It was also through this area that countless slaves were brought through during the 18th and 19th centuries. The slaves were unloaded from the ships and marched into the buildings along River Street. They were then led out the back of the buildings, into Factors Walk. One of the more intriguing features of Factors Walk are the sealed-off tunnel entrances. These tunnels, which lead from Factors Walk under Bay Street, and into the basements of buildings along Bay Street, have been the subject of much conjecture and theory. While it is widely accepted that these tunnels were used to transport slaves to holding areas, without being seen, there is no telling what other nefarious reasons these tunnels were used for. Some of the most common ghost and paranormal entities in the Factors Walk area are shadow figures. These black, darker-than-dark figures take the shape of a human and they sneak through the cobblestone-lined streets of Factors Walk. Like many areas in Savannah, shadow people are often seen moving through the nighttime. While not accessible anymore, the tunnels which originate in the Factors Walk area have been known to send ghastly moans into the still night air. Madison Square, located on Bull Street, is one of the most impressive squares in Savannah. It was laid out in 1837 and named for President James Madison. However, it was prior to the square being laid out that the ground which makes up Madison Square started having haunted reports. During the Revolutionary War, the British occupied Savannah for quite some time. During the First Battle of Savannah, the British lines extending to Madison Square. There was a battle that took place in this area. Buried British soldiers have been found while digging basements for a few of the buildings which surround Madison Square. One of the heroes of the Battle of Savannah, William Jasper, is immortalized in the monument that sits in the center of Madison Square. The most common ghost seen in Madison Square is a solid black shadow figure. It is said to have the shape of a full-grown man. This ghost seems to enjoy floating through Madison Square, dancing in and out of the lights from the street lamps. A block away from the rushing waters of the Savannah River, the Pirates' House is a tavern that was built around 1794. Pirates and sailors alike would meet at the tavern for a drink and a good time. It was a popular destination among seafaring men and soon became the local hotspot for brews and brawls. Underground tunnels were soon dug out to make the shady happenings of the Pirates' House even more discreet. During World War II, the building fell into disuse, and in 1945, the property was acquired by the Savannah Gas Company and the building was scheduled to be demolished. It was saved by Mrs. Mary Hillier, the wife of Mr. Hansel Hillier. Mary, along with a few other local lovers of history, took it upon themselves to restore General Oglethorpe's vision of Savannah. In the process, the Pirates' House received a much-needed restoration, ensuring that it would endure the years and be available for generations to come. The establishment reopened as a tea room in 1953. It changed faces again and once housed a jazz club before it became the bar and restaurant that it is today. During the height of the Pirates' House's popularity, author Robert Louis Stevenson visited the building for some sort of inspiration. He left feeling the fires of creativity and soon wrote Treasure Island in 1883. The novel became immensely popular and even created many of the stereotypes about pirates that still exist today. In its early days, the pirate's house was a haven for seamen, criminals, and other less than saintly figures. Many men found themselves in the bar for a beer or two only to wake up on a ship hundreds of miles off of the coast. This was a process known as Shanghai Ing and left countless men as indentured servants to the sea captains that kidnapped them. Leading from the pirate's house rum cellar onto River Street is a musty tunnel. It's been covered over since, but it was once used as a transport tunnel for these unsuspecting men. Savannah is well known as a place of turmoil and unrest when it comes to the spirit world. This popular tavern is no different. Many visitors have reported strange ghostly activity during their visits to the pirate's house. Even the employees of the bar have had their own strange happenings, including glasses falling from shelves on their own and visions of apparitions wandering throughout the dining room. Workers have reported feeling the eerie presence of entities and even coming face to face with the spirits of seamen who enjoyed the tavern in years past. The sounds of heavy boots have been heard moving about the building after closing time, and screams have even been reported coming from the closed-off tunnels that run underneath the building. Spirits of sailors are the most commonly reported occurrence, and for good reason considering the past of the building. Located on the 17-mile-long Wilmington River some 3 miles from downtown Savannah is the fascinatingly beautiful Bonaventure Cemetery that has been described as a natural cathedral. Ancient live oak trees cloaked in Spanish moss line all the winding paths in this cemetery, lending a haunting allure to the many elaborate and time-stained monuments throughout. To offset the grays and gloominess are vibrant azaleas and camellias bursting with color when they bloom in the spring and summer. The 100 acres of this special place have stirred the emotions of generations of visitors over a great many years, and you'll feel something stir in you the minute you approach the main gate. The land was first purchased in 1762 by a politically active British loyalist named John Mulrine. After the American War of Independence came to an end, those loyal to the British Crown began to face persecution, and Mr. Mulrine's land was seized by local authorities and auctioned off to the public. The property changed hands another 3 times until 1907, when it was officially acquired by the city of Savannah, in whose hands it still resides today. The city then declared the grounds a public cemetery. A novel that subsequently became a major motion picture, published in 1994, owes much to the cemetery and vice versa. Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, by John Berendt, is a first-person account of life in the Old South interwoven with a murder mystery that casts Savannah as its backdrop, and features the statue of a girl holding 2 small bowls, one in each hand, gracing its front cover. Little Wendy, as the statue is also referred to, once stood sentinel over the Trostel family plot, but she became so idolized as a result of her newfound literary fame that the owners donated the statue to Savannah's Telfair Museum of Art to avoid her destruction. Another famous sculpture that has elicited fantastic stories is that of Gracie Watson, or, as she is affectionately known, Little Gracie. The 6-year-old girl died of pneumonia and was memorialized in marble by artist John Walls from nothing but a photograph. For years, people have reported seeing a little girl that fits her description playing in Madison Square, where her father's hotel once stood. The legend claims she appears as a normal, living girl in a white dress who vanishes without a trace when you get too close. To some, Little Gracie still lives. Visitors leave toys for her to play with, especially around Christmas time, and claim she cries tears of blood if her playthings are removed. Minerva the Voodoo Priestess, an enigmatic character in the novel Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, is based on an actual Savannah resident named Valerie Fennel Aiken Bowles. Bowles has since died, but she is immortalized in the book, casting spells and hexes and collecting cemetery dirt for use in her rituals. This has led to the practice of visitors collecting souvenir soil from Bonaventure Cemetery. On average, over 5 million people came to visit Savannah, drawn by its elegant architecture, ornate ironwork, fountains, green squares, and of course ghosts. Savannah's beauty is rivaled only by the city's reputation as the most haunted city in America.